Hello, I'm Afonso Oliveira, and I'm going to present RISC-V Unified Database. And first, I'm just going to say, well, I'm a master student at University of Minho. I'm a software engineer at Synopsys. I'm an active contributor in the Unified Database, and I've been sponsored by the ESA Academy to be here today, so thank you, ESA. Now, onto the talk. So first, I'm going to start with a bit of a motivation on the challenges that the RISC-V specification currently faces, and I believe that by the end of this section you'll see them as growth challenges. At least that's what I expect. So, if you've worked RISC-V and if you've designed RISC-V or worked in software in RISC-V, you've probably came across these manuals. The first one is the ISA manual, and the second one is the assembly manual. Has a bunch of pseudo instructions and directives for writing assembly. Then you have RISC-V opcodes, where you describe your instructions, and still RISC-V, which has been talked in this stage for quite extensively today and yesterday, and it's a formal specification of RISC-V. And they're all somewhat scattered, and the problem with this is that these are not like the 4 repositories we have. There's like many more, like there's AIA specification, trusted execution, environment specification, and even then, there's way more than we have on stage, than we have on the presentation. So, well, when I joined Synopsys and they told me, well, go look at the specification and basically try to join it in some way. And I tried to bring it to a central point, and I could not. And I was really confused. And I tried to understand, like, why can't we join this? Like, there's a real problem here. Like, there is no way we can understand all of these different specifications. And, well, we gotta find a solution. And to find a solution, we need to better understand the problem. So, if we look into the RISC-V ISA manual, what we will see is that it was created in 2015, and it had only 5 extensions. And 10 years later, there's like more than 200 if you look into privileged and privileged. And the way that it is developed, I believe, is quite the same. And, well, it's basically all text, so there's not like a framework that you can use much more than doing make on their repository. And there's actually no way to do like a subset of the manual other than copy-pasting the manual. And that, I believe, is what most vendors are doing up until now, which is really error-prone. And if you look at RISC-V opcodes, that describes pretty much all the extensions. Well, it was first created in 2010. There is the first commit from Andrew Waterman to that repository. It was refactored, but it was not like properly fixed in the whole levels. And it also went from 5 to 200 extensions. So what we see is that there is no way that we go around like all this specification in a really nice way that makes it easy. It's sometimes quite frustrating. And I don't believe this is a RISC-V problem. It's just that the infrastructure around the RISC-V has stayed pretty much stationary for now. So RISC-V, I believe, has outgrown its own infrastructure. So I wondered, like, how do we fix this? And I found this project, the RISC-V Unified Database. And the way I want you to think about the RISC-V Unified Database is pretty much 2 things. So, first, there is a source of truth. It's a bunch of YAML files that I'll show you, and it has different types of YAML files. And then there is a tool, and that tool is optional. You can use only the YAML files. You can use the pre-existing tool, but I'll delve more into it in this slide. So, if you may see the golden source of truth at the left, you will have the RVI spec in a bunch of YAML files, and then you have some custom overlays. So if you're a CPU vendor, you are going to develop custom extensions, instructions, you can add those in pretty easily. Then there's a framework that I won't delve much into it, and then there's a bunch of outputs that I believe will interest you. But first, the golden source of truth, what does it have? So, it's composed mainly by instructions, CSRs, profiles, architectural parameters, and then there's also extensions, and a couple more things. But given I don't have a lot of time today, I won't bore you with all of that. I'm just going to show the instructions. I believe most people are familiar with this. This is common CPU instructions, arithmetic, logic, memory control. And the way UDB defines this, as you may see, is a big YAML file that we believe has all the necessary information. And if it does not have the necessary information for your needs, you may just change the schema and add some more information. So from top down, you may see there's name, long name, and description. And then there's a really interesting part about encoding. This is what RISC-V opcodes used to do beforehand, but we did it a bit differently. You can have more fields than those there, but since this is an add, it's quite simple description. Then you have the access modes in which you can access it, and then you also have the formal specification joined with the instruction, something you'll not find for every instruction in the ISA manual. So you may see SAIL is the official formal language for RISC-V, and we parsed it out of the SAIL model, but there's also IDL. I won't go over the differences between them, but there's definitely some semantics that you can use if you're using this manual. Then, what can we generate out of this? Like, I won't go over the framework, but I'll go over the outputs because I believe those can be quite interesting. So there's documents, but there's also simulators, and there's also some raw data that you may use for your specific use cases. So let's start with manuals. So out of UDB, you can generate a full ISA manual, just like the one in the ISA repository. This is not fully ratified, so yeah, use it with care. We're working on it as of right now, but you can also generate quite some other documents, or documents that didn't exist before. So you can generate certification documents, and the certification and steering committee from RVI is working on this to try to make a microcontroller certification document out of this. You can also generate profile manuals, extension manuals. You can generate appendices. This is something the spec doesn't have yet, so if you're creating a CPU and you want to create some nice documentation for your software developers, you may as well just create an instruction appendice and some CSR appendix for them. And then there is an instruction set simulator. So this is also a collaboration that Reno did with UDB. UDB is a fully open source project. And UDB was used to create the heart to integrate with the Renode. And this is currently upstream and working, so you may check it. And then, lastly, there is RISC-V opcodes output. So I've already mentioned RISC-V opcodes a bit, but I'll mention it a bit more now because it's truly useful in a lot of senses for RISC-V as of now. So as you may see in the beginning of this slide, there is the RISC-V opcodes description for the add, and yeah, that's it. It's not really much of an in-depth description, and it doesn't support versions and some other things. But it has great usability. So Golang uses this as an input for RISC-V instructions. Spike also uses it. Architectural tests also use it. And some proprietary tools and scripts also use it for companies to develop their own tools and scripts. And so UDB is creating a porting guide, so all RISC-V opcodes users, if there's some in this audience, you'll be able to migrate with UDB with like really short friction. And now I'm getting into UDB in the space industry. First, I'm going to speak about how we are using it and how I think you may use it is coming next. So currently, the certification and steering committee is using it to create certification documents. I'm not really an expert in space industry, but I believe you certify a lot of things, so I really see how you may use it for this. Then, if you're creating extensions for space, you can also use UDB to describe your extensions and have a much more formatted version of your extensions. Synopsys is also using it to generate processors documentation, and there is some cross-verification tools that check UDB information against LLVM, binutils, and other resources, so we can really ensure that the information we're providing is right. And then, well, how can you use it? Well, you may use it to build any documents you may want to, but you may also provide this may also provide contents for your new tools. So I suppose that the space industry has a lot of different tools about space, about verification, certification, and well, you can just use the UDB as like the foundational source of truth for your own tool, and you'll have a verified source of truth, and you won't have to deal with the pain of going and fetching all the information from all the different resources. So, community endorsement. When I submitted my talk, the reviewer's comment was, what does the community feel about it? Or is it just you working in your cave, basically, and doing this? Well, it's not. So UDB is now being developed by several different companies. You may read them. There's more than those, but those were the ones that were more active in committing and discussing it. And there's 7 RISC-V mentees working on the project. This is under official Linux Foundation and RISC-V mentorship platform. And also, quite recently, the TSC gave initial endorsement to UDB. This means that now there is a UDB SIG, and UDB is working with other other special interest groups. So I've heard a lot about the space SIG. Well, if you create one, I'm sure we can work together and get a solution for space out as well. And then, well, join us. That is the link for our GitHub repository. Ask questions. There's several issues and discussion ongoing. There's our weekly meetings there. And you can just contact me. I'll be outside as well. So if you have any question on how to use this for your tool or your CPU, yeah, just reach out, please. And thank you.